Last month, Lucasfilm revealed the future of a galaxy far, far away at the Star Wars celebration in London. Now, President and Executive Producer Kathleen Kennedy has discussed Lucasfilm's current release strategy for their film slate. In an interview with Empire magazine, Kathleen Kennedy confirmed plans to eventize each Star Wars. So what does that mean? Well, yearly releases are no longer a thing. Kathleen Kennedy credited the James Bond franchise as an inspiration behind this model. Why? Well, the plan will hopefully take off pressure from the studio and ensure the quality of the upcoming movies. I've often brought up Bond. That's every 3 or 4 years, and there wasn't this pressure to feel like you had to have a movie every year. So, literally, George Lucas. Why do you have to bring up James Bond? Why can't you just be like, well, why don't we go back to what George Lucas used to do, who created Star Wars and release movies every 3 or so years? I really don't understand, bro. Like, how can this person be running Lucasfilm, man? And yes, I'm nitpicking, but it's just such an insult at this point. I think their whole model is off. You don't need to be making Star Wars movies every 3 years for them to be good. You just need to make good Star Wars movies. I don't think Star Wars fatigue exists or will ever exist. I think the issue is we have a Star Wars famine where people aren't getting enough Star Wars, and so they're becoming disassociated with it. And the Star Wars that we do get really isn't the Star Wars that we are used to and were brought up with. And that's because of Kathleen Kennedy's inability to really comprehend what Star Wars is and what it used to be under George. Case in point, she's bringing up Bond. George was the one who created Star Wars, and he also had movies every 3 years or more. So I really fail to understand where her logic is. And I think the issue here isn't necessarily the time slot of releasing these movies, but rather creating a good team that works synergistically, and a team who has done their Star Wars homework and understands Star Wars, and keeping the noses of the executive board people who think they know everything out of the scripts and let the creatives do their thing and be creative. The key here is hire the right team. No more agenda crap. I don't think that there's some sort of like excitement that, you know, every 3 years people are going to be like, oh my God, a Star Wars movie. Yeah, sure. But you know what? We could have that every year as well. Case in point, Rogue One and The Last Jedi. They were a year apart and they both did phenomenally well. Rogue One because it was a good movie. The Last Jedi because it was the continuation of the next sequel film. And because the marketing for The Last Jedi was still to this day, I think, better than any other Star Wars project to date. So these are my thoughts on Kathleen Kennedy and the Star Wars release dates going forwards for movies, as well as her odd correlation between the Bond films and what they should be doing when George was doing it literally all along for Star Wars.